Shortly after midnight on October 18th, 1985, patrolman David Mansu stopped to check on a car parked by the side of the road. Between the two occupants of the car, his flashlight beam picked up a hypodermic needle. The West Windsor, New Jersey policeman called for backup, and a chain of events began that would ultimately put dozens of lives in jeopardy.
I had begun searching the car and had in fact found drugs inside the car. And I alerted Patrolman Edwards that the gentleman was under arrest.
When Mansu arrested the man for possession of cocaine and a syringe, he suddenly doubled over.
He was clenching his chest severely with his arms, adamant about the fact that he was having a heart attack.
2 ambulances arrived almost immediately, with 3 volunteer emergency medical technicians and paramedic Nick Simzak.
We got out of the vehicle, went over to assess the patient. He was extremely uncooperative at that point. He was hunched down and was very tight, wouldn't move. A friend of his who was with him at the time told my partner that he had a history of diabetes and he had been doing cocaine for a couple of days.
All right, let's go.
They stabilized the suspect for transport, and all 4 got into one ambulance with him.
At that point, I advised the driver that I would be following the ambulance in a patrol car, and if there were any problems with this individual, Mr. Lenz, to pull over, and I would attend to those problems.
While we had him in the back of the ambulance, he still was acting disoriented, confused, uncooperative, and showing signs of pretty much of how a diabetic or hypoglycemic patient would act. We had started the IV on him, and Mr. Lenz pulled the gun on us.
Get out of here!
He sat down next to me on the bench, and he said, "This gun has a hollow point bullet in it. You know what that can do." At that point, I said, "Look, I have a wife, and I have 2 children that I love very much, and I'd really like to see them again." And with that, he turned and he turned the gun off of me and went after Bill. He had Bill up against the side of the ambulance, and he was screaming, "Tell the police to get back or I'll kill him."
Back off now!
When he started to scream, "You're going to kill him, I'm going to kill him right now," I looked up at Bill, and Bill's eyes were almost saying, "Please, I don't want to die." So that's when I got back into the ambulance.
I'll shoot you! Get away, cop! Come on, let's go! Drive!
EMT Joan Myers was driving.
I tapped on the window, trying to indicate to her to turn the ambulance off, but she never acknowledged that.
With the lives of 4 hostages at stake, Mansu put out the call for backup.
237, I have a hostage situation here at the hospital.
I felt that I failed the victims in the fact that we were allowed to be tricked by Mr. Lenz faking the heart attack, and that we were so concerned about his well-being and his welfare that we failed to forcibly pull his arms apart.
Mansu followed the ambulance with no idea what was going on inside.
We were traveling down University Place at a speed of approximately 35 to 40 miles an hour when suddenly the rear door to the ambulance came open and a body came flying out. I was certain that Mr. Lenz had shot this individual and thrown him out the back door as some indication to us that he was serious.
Are you okay? You okay? Yeah. It's just a cut. He's not shot. It's just a cut. I'm going to continue after the ambulance. You want to take care of him? I got it.
He indicated to me that he had taken it upon himself to dive out the back of the ambulance.
I do remember looking at Bill like, "Do you want to go with me?" And I just opened the back door of the ambulance, and the next thing I know, I was getting up off the ground. The hardest thing was leaving the other people in the vehicle, because you felt like I was abandoning them.
The gunman took over the radio from Joan Myers and threatened to kill the 3 remaining hostages if the cops didn't return his cocaine and his glasses.
The reason why we stopped at Dunkin' Donuts was because he said something about being a diabetic, and he said he needed something to eat or sugar. So Billy went in, we watched him, and Michael says, "Stay right here, because I can see him." He came in the front seat, and the gun was held to my head. And I had no idea whether the safety was on or off. I didn't want to see the gun. I didn't want to know it was there.
Patrolman Mansu and Sergeant Bill Clark were also watching.
My main concern was that now we had a hostage, Bill Manuel, out of the ambulance. He was the one who was chosen to go in and make the order at Dunkin' Donuts. And that I did not want to allow him to re-enter the ambulance. Figured we had him out now, we were going to take him out. We were going to leave him out.
coming out. I'm not going to let him get back in the ambulance.
As Bill Manuel exited the Dunkin' Donuts, I grabbed him.
Before I got out, Lenz told me to come back or else he was going to kill the other two that were in there. And I told him I had to get back, and he says no.
Suddenly, the ambulance came around the corner. We could see that Mr. Lenz was now in the front seat, and a dialogue began between myself and Mr. Lenz. He was demanding that we give Mr. Manuel back to him.
Nobody's going to get hurt, Michael. Everything's going to be okay. Come on, just calm down.
Obviously, we could not have fired upon him because of Joan Myers' position. We were not going to put her in any more danger than she was already in.
Can't have him back, Mike. Just calm down. Come on. We don't want to hurt anybody, Mike. Come on. Just calm down. Just want to talk, Mike. Come on, Michael. Just calm down. Let's talk about this, Michael. Come on. Come on. Nobody's going to get hurt, Michael.
The ambulance stopped. And it appeared to me that Mr. Lenz now moved from the front of the ambulance to the rear of the ambulance.
Take it easy, Michael.
I got the attention of Joan Myers. She opened the door when I reached up and grabbed her and threw her back to Sergeant Clark. I then trained my weapon on the open doorway to the ambulance, hoping to see Mr. Lenz once again.
I think relief was almost too overwhelming, but at the same time I'm wondering, is Rory okay? Is he going to be as lucky as we are?
The last hostage, Rory Murphy, is forced into the driver's seat at gunpoint, and the ambulance took off. When we continue,